The Pacific Ocean, June 1943. The horizon glows with the soft pink of dawn, casting a shimmering veil across the endless waves. In the cramped cockpit of a Mitsubishi A6M0, Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanaka, a 26-year-old ace, adjusts his worn leather flight cap, his fingers tracing the frayed edges. The Zero's Nakajima Sakai 21 engine hums, its 950 horsepower vibrating through the airframe, a familiar pulse that has carried Hiroshi through 50 missions. For 3 years, Japan's naval aviators have ruled the skies. Their Zeros, sleek and agile, have been the terror of the Pacific, from the smoldering wreckage of Pearl Harbor to the dense jungles of New Guinea. These pilots, forged in a crucible of discipline, are the spearhead of the Imperial Japanese Navy. But the air is thick with unease. A new predator, the Grumman F6F Hellcat, stalks the heavens, its 2,000 horsepower engine a menacing growl that echoes across the ocean. This is the story of Japanese pilots, men like Hiroshi, brave, skilled, and fiercely loyal, who fought to outmaneuver, outrun, and outlast this relentless American war machine, and why for so many it was already too late. Let's set the stage. In December 1941, Japan's naval air forces were a juggernaut, a force that reshaped the Pacific War in a single day. The Mitsubishi A6M0, known to its pilots as the Ryzen Zero fighter, was a marvel of aeronautical engineering. Weighing just 5,500 pounds fully loaded, it could climb to 20,000 feet in 6.8 minutes, turn tighter than any Allied plane, and cover 1,600 miles on a single tank. Its armament, two 20mm Type 99 cannons with 60 rounds each and two 7.7mm Type 97 machine guns with 500 rounds, made it a deadly adversary in dogfights. At Pearl Harbor, Zeros flew 350 miles from their carriers, dropping 250-kilogram bombs that sank the USS Arizona and crippled the Pacific Fleet. In the Philippines, they outmaneuvered American P-40 Warhawks, reducing Clark Field to a smoldering ruin in hours. Japanese pilots, products of a training system that demanded 700 hours of flight time and relentless discipline, were the elite of the Imperial Navy. Hiroshi Tanaka, a fictional but representative figure, embodies this era. His Zero's fuselage is marked with 15 victory tallies, each a testament to his skill. His squadron, a tight-knit group of 20 pilots, calls him Hawk for his sharp eyes and sharper instincts, honed over years of grueling drills. But the Allies were not idle. By mid-1942, the United States, battered by Pearl Harbor and the fall of the Philippines, was dissecting its enemy. A Zero, crash-landed in the Aleutian Islands during the Battle of Dutch Harbor, was recovered and shipped to North Island Naval Air Station in San Diego. American engineers, led by Grumman's Leroy Grumman, and Navy test pilots studied the plane like a captured trophy. They marveled at its lightweight frame, 33-foot wingspan, and 3,000 foot per minute climb rate, but they also found its weaknesses: no armor to protect the pilot, no self-sealing fuel tanks to prevent fires, and a structure so light it crumpled under heavy fire. The Zero's 1.8mm aluminum skin was a compromise, prioritizing agility over durability. A single 50-caliber round could pierce its fuel tanks, igniting 150 gallons of volatile fuel. The U.S. Navy tasked Grumman with a mission: build a fighter to exploit these flaws and destroy the Zero. The result was the F6F Hellcat, a plane engineered not just to compete but to dominate. The Hellcat was a beast. Its Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, with 18 cylinders and 2,000 horsepower, pushed it to 380 miles per hour and a climb rate of 3,500 feet per minute. Its 650 caliber M2 Browning machine guns, each firing 750 rounds per minute, could unleash 4,500 rounds in a single burst, enough to shred a Zero's fragile airframe. Each gun carried 400 rounds, giving the Hellcat 33 seconds of continuous fire. Its armored cockpit, with 200 pounds of steel plating, protected the pilot, while self-sealing fuel tanks shrugged off leaks that would doom a Zero. The Hellcat's 12,000-pound weight made it heavier than the Zero, but its 1,200-mile range and rugged design made it a predator for the long haul. Grumman's engineers, working with Navy tacticians, designed the Hellcat to counter the Zero's agility with raw power, durability, and firepower, turning Japan's strengths into liabilities. Picture Hiroshi in June 1943, stationed aboard the carrier Zuikaku in the Solomon Islands, Japan's defensive perimeter fraying under Allied assaults. The Zuikaku, a veteran of Pearl Harbor and the Coral Sea, is a floating fortress, but its crew is weary. Fuel is rationed to 50 gallons per mission, a fraction of the Zero's 150-gallon capacity. Spare parts are scavenged from wrecks, and the mess hall is filled with recruits barely 18, their faces pale with inexperience. Hiroshi, now a flight leader, briefs his squadron of 12 Zeros in the carrier's humid briefing room. Their mission? Intercept American planes spotted near Guadalcanal, where U.S. Marines are pushing back Japanese forces. Rumors of a new American fighter, a Hellcat, have spread among the pilots, whispered in the dim light of the hangar deck. Hiroshi, skeptical but cautious, inspects his A6M20. Its paint is chipped, its engine coughing from poor maintenance, but its controls still respond like an extension of his body. He signals his wingmen, Ensign Kenji Sato, a 20-year-old with a quick grin and a knack for poetry, and Lieutenant Taro Yamada, a stoic veteran whose steady hands have saved Hiroshi before. The Zeros roar off the Zuikaku's deck, their propellers slicing through the humid air, climbing into a sky heavy with promise and dread. The patrol begins like countless others. The squadron climbs to 18,000 feet, weaving through towering cumulus clouds that cast fleeting shadows on the Pacific below. The ocean is a vast canvas of blue and green, its islands scattered like emeralds. Hiroshi's radio crackles with updates from Kenji and Taro. No contacts yet. He scans the horizon, his goggles fogging in the tropical heat. His Zero, with its 33-foot wingspan and low wing loading, feels nimble, ready to dance. Then, a glint in the distance, like sunlight on metal, a formation of planes, their radial engines a low, menacing rumble. Hiroshi's pulse quickens. These aren't the lumbering F4F Wildcats he's outmaneuvered before. These are bigger, their 42-foot wings broad and menacing, their engines roaring with 2,000 horsepower. The F6F Hellcat has entered the fight, and the sky is about to explode. The battle erupts in a heartbeat. Hiroshi pulls his Zero into a tight loop, a maneuver that's baffled Allied pilots since Pearl Harbor. His squadron follows, their formation a disciplined arrowhead, each pilot anticipating the other's moves. But the Hellcats are unfazed. Ensign Jack Carter, a 23-year-old from Ohio, pilots his F6F nicknamed Betsy, fresh from Grumman's factory in Bethpage. Its guns are loaded with 2,400 rounds of 50-caliber ammunition, each bullet capable of penetrating 0.5 inches of steel at 500 yards. Jack spots Hiroshi's Zero, its green camouflage glinting in the sun, and dives from 20,000 feet. His Hellcat's R2800 engine roaring like a storm. Hiroshi jinks left, then right, his Zero twisting like a dragonfly, its ailerons responding. With the precision of a surgeon's scalpel, tracers streak past his canopy, close enough to rattle the glass. He dives to 200 feet, skimming the waves, the ocean a blur beneath him. He hopes the Hellcat's 12,000-pound frame will slow it in the low-altitude chase. But Jack stays with him, the F6F's power overwhelming the Zero's agility, its guns spitting a storm of lead. This isn't just a dogfight. It's a collision of philosophies, technologies, and wills. The Zero was built for a war of finesse, its lightweight design allowing pilots like Hiroshi to outturn heavier opponents like the P-40 or F4F. Its 1-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio made it a dancer in the skies, capable of 6 G-turns that left Allied pilots dizzy. But the Hellcat was a brawler designed to exploit the Zero's weaknesses. Its 200 pounds of armor could withstand the Zero's 20mm Type 99 cannons, which often jammed after 60 rounds due to poor synchronization. Its self-sealing fuel tanks, coated with layers of rubber and sealant, prevented fires, while the Zero's 150-gallon tanks were firebombs waiting for a spark. American pilots like Jack were trained in boom and zoom tactics, dive from 25,000 feet at a 45-degree angle, fire a 3-second burst, then climb away before the Zero could turn. Hiroshi, schooled in tight dogfights where skill trumped firepower, is struggling. His Zero's 950 horsepower engine, once a marvel, can't match the Hellcat's 2,000 horsepower. His cockpit, with no armor, feels like a glass cage, every tracer a potential death sentence. Let's zoom out to the broader war. The Hellcat's introduction in 1943 was a seismic shift in the Pacific theater. Japan's air forces were stretched across a 5,000-mile empire, from the Aleutian Islands to the East Indies, defending bases like Rabaul, Truk, and Saipan. Resources were dwindling, fuel was rationed to 50 gallons per mission, often diluted with ethanol that fouled engines. Spare parts were scarcer, with mechanics scavenging bolts, rivets, and even propellers from wrecked planes. Experienced pilots like Hiroshi were becoming rare, their numbers dwindling with each mission. Japan's training programs, once the gold standard with 700 hours of flight time and rigorous combat drills, were rushed. By 1944, recruits as young as 17 were thrown into combat with 80 hours of flight time, barely enough to master takeoffs and landings. The U.S., by contrast, was an industrial juggernaut. Grumman's factories in Bethpage, New York, employed 30,000 workers, producing 12,275 Hellcats by war's end. Each Hellcat was a masterpiece of engineering, with a 42-foot wingspan, a 1,200-mile range, and a service ceiling of 37,000 feet. American carriers like the USS Enterprise, USS Essex, and USS Intrepid were floating fortresses, each carrying 90 Hellcats, 100,000 gallons of fuel, the ammunition, and 50,000 rounds of 50-caliber ammunition. Supply ships like the USS Altair delivered spare parts, bombs, and food, ensuring carriers stayed combat-ready across the Pacific, back to the dogfight. Hiroshi's squadron is unraveling, the sky a chaos of smoke and fire. Ensign Kenji Sato, the poet with a quick grin, takes a hit. His Zero's right wing shears off in a spray of sparks. The plane spinning wildly, it plunges into the ocean, a fireball erupting on impact. Hiroshi shouts into his radio, his voice hoarse, but Kenji's channel is silent. Lieutenant Taro Yamada, the stoic veteran, tries to cover Hiroshi, pulling a steep climb to draw off a Hellcat. But the American pilot, trained in the Navy's fighter tactics school at Pearl Harbor, anticipates the move. A burst of .50 caliber rounds rips through Taro's Zero, and it explodes, its wreckage scattering across the waves like confetti. Hiroshi's heart pounds as he pulls a desperate maneuver, a snap roll followed by a vertical climb, hoping to stall the heavier Hellcat. But Jack's F6F powers through, its R2800 engine unfazed by the Zero's tricks. Bullets tear into Hiroshi's tail, severing a control cable. Black smoke pours from his engine, and his cockpit fills with the acrid stench of burning oil. His controls shudder, the stick heavy in his hands. He's running out of time. His Zero, a wounded bird in a sky ruled by predators. This moment encapsulates the Hellcat's dominance. Japanese pilots were brave, often heroic, but courage couldn't overcome the F6F's advantages. Its 50-caliber M2 Browning guns, with a muzzle velocity of 2,900 feet per second, could punch through a Zero's aluminum skin like paper. Each bullet, weighing 1.7 ounces, carried 13,000 foot-pounds of energy, enough to sever a wing spar or ignite a fuel tank. The Hellcat's armor, including a 45-pound bulletproof windscreen and 155 pounds of steel plating around the cockpit, protected the pilot and critical systems. Its self-sealing fuel tanks, with layers of rubber and sealant, could absorb multiple hits, while a single Falcon-caliber round in a Zero's tank could ignite 150 gallons of fuel, creating a fireball visible for miles. American pilots, backed by ANAPS-6 radar and carrier-based intelligence, fought with a confidence Hiroshi's squadron could no longer muster. The Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands, fought on October 25 to 26, 1942, was one of the Hellcat's early proving grounds. Japanese carriers, including the Zuikaku and Shokaku, launched 150 planes to attack the USS Hornet. Hellcats from the USS Enterprise, guided by CXAM-1 radar, intercepted them, downing over 100 aircraft, including 50 Zeros. Japan lost not just planes, but pilots. Men like Kenji and Taro, whose experience was irreplaceable. The US lost the Hornet, but the Hellcat's performance sent a clear message. Japan's air superiority was over. The Hellcat wasn't just a fighter, it was a multi-role weapon that reshaped the Pacific War. Beyond dogfights, it carried 2,000 pounds of ordnance, including 6 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets, HVARs, or two 500-pound ANM-64 bombs. Each HVAR, nicknamed Holy Moses for its explosive power, carried a 7-pound warhead that could punch through a destroyer's hull or destroy a bunker. The Hellcat's 1,200-mile range allowed it to escort B-24 Liberators on 600-mile bombing runs or strike Japanese airfields from carriers 200 miles offshore. Its K-24 camera, mounted in the wing, captured reconnaissance photos of enemy defenses guiding Allied planners. The Battle of the Philippine Sea, fought on June 19 to 20, 1944, was the Hellcat's defining moment, known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. It saw Hellcats from Task Force 58, including carriers like the USS Lexington, USS Yorktown, and USS Bunker Hill, down over 300 Japanese planes in a single day with only 20 American losses. Most Japanese pilots flying outdated A6M-20s were novices with 100 hours of flight time, no match for Hellcat pilots with 600 hours and simulator training. Hiroshi's comrades, scattered across the Marianas, were outmatched in speed, firepower, and numbers, their Zeros falling like leaves in a storm. Let's dive into the Zero's decline, a slow unraveling that mirrored Japan's fading hopes. In 1941, the A6M-0 was a legend. Its 1,130-kilometer range and 350-mile-per-hour top speed unmatched by any Allied fighter. Its 3,000-foot-per-minute climb rate and 33-foot wingspan gave it agility that left P-40s and F-4Fs in the dust. Its low wing loading, 22 pounds per square foot, allowed 6G turns that strained the pilot's body but baffled opponents. But by 1943, its flaws were glaring. Without armor, a single 50-caliber round could kill the pilot, sever a control cable, or destroy an engine. Without self-sealing fuel tanks, a spark could ignite 150 gallons of 87-octane fuel, turning the Zero into a fireball. Japan tried to adapt, introducing the A6M-50 in 1943 with a 1,130-horsepower Sakai 21 engine, thicker wing skin, and improved exhaust stacks for better speed. But it was a stopgap, too little and too late. The Hellcat evolved faster. The F6F-5, introduced in 1944, had a bubble canopy for 360-degree visibility, 300 pounds of additional armor, and a water injection system that boosted its engine to 2,200 horsepower, pushing its top speed to 391 miles per hour. American pilots, trained at bases like NAS Pensacola and briefed on Japanese tactics through captured documents, exploited every Zero weakness: its tendency to stall in high-speed dives, its limited ammunition, and its fragile airframe. Hiroshi's fight continues, a desperate struggle against an enemy that seems invincible. His Zero is limping, its engine coughing black smoke, its oil pressure dropping. He's out of 20-millimeter rounds, his 7.7-millimeter guns down to 50 rounds each. The Hellcat on his tail, piloted by Ensign Jack Carter, is relentless, its 6 guns waiting for a kill shot. Hiroshi tries a final trick, a barrel roll into a dive, skimming the waves at 150 feet. The ocean blurs beneath him. Sea spray misting his shattered canopy, the salt stinging his eyes. A 50-caliber round grazes his cockpit, glass shards cutting his face. Blood drips onto his flight suit, but he blinks it away, his hands steady on the stick. He spots a coral airstrip on a small island, its runway a faint line against the green jungle. It's a long shot, but it's his only hope. He banks toward it, his Zero shaking violently, its ailerons sluggish. The Hellcat, Low on ammo after firing 1,200 rounds, breaks off, its pilot recalled to the USS Enterprise by radio. Hiroshi lands, his plane skidding across the coral, its landing gear buckling. He climbs out, his legs trembling, his face bloodied. He's alive, but his squadron is gone. Kenji and Taro are names on a growing list of the fallen. This encounter, though fictionalized, mirrors the real experiences of Japanese pilots. Men like Lieutenant Saburo Sakai, a real-life ace with 64 kills, flew Zeros until their planes or luck gave out. Sakai, wounded by a .50 caliber round in August 1942, flew 600 miles with a shattered canopy and partial blindness, landing his Zero with one eye. His memoir, Samurai, captures the resilience of Japan's pilots, but also their tragedy. Men who fought against overwhelming odds. The Hellcat was a predator, its pilots relentless. Lieutenant Commander David McCampbell, the Navy's top ace, shot down 34 Japanese planes, many in his Hellcat, Mincy III. During the Battle of Leyte Gulf, October 24th to 25th, 1944, McCampbell and his wingman, Ensign Roy Rushing, faced 60 enemy planes, downing 9 in a single mission. McCampbell's Hellcat, with 6 guns and 2,400 rounds, could fire for 33 seconds straight, each burst a death sentence for Zeros. His success was a blend of skill, tactics, and technology, honed at the Navy's Fighter Weapons School in San Diego. If you're gripped by this tale of aerial combat, where brave pilots faced impossible odds against the Hellcat's might, hit that subscribe button. Your support keeps these stories soaring, bringing history to life. Stay with us for more. The psychological toll on Japanese pilots was crushing, a relentless erosion of spirit that mirrored the physical destruction of their planes. These men were the products of a training system that began in their teens, a grueling regimen that demanded perfection. They memorized every control of the Zero, from its throttle to its rudder pedals, practicing maneuvers until they were second nature. They flew mock dogfights over Kyushu, pulling 6G turns that blackened their vision but sharpened their skills. They studied Bushido, the warrior code that valued honor above life, and believed their Zeros made them invincible. In 1941, they flew with swagger, outturning P-40s in the Philippines and Buffaloes in Singapore. Their victories were celebrated in newspapers, their names whispered with pride in Tokyo's streets. But by 1944, that confidence was gone, replaced by a gnawing dread. The Hellcat was an enemy they couldn't outrun, outgun, or outlast. Its .50 caliber M2 Browning guns, firing 1.7-ounce bullets at 2,900 feet per second, could penetrate 0.5 inches of steel at 500 yards. A single hit could sever a Zero's wing spar, ignite its 150-gallon fuel tank, or kill the pilot outright. The Zero's 1.8mm aluminum skin, designed for agility, offered no protection. Hiroshi, once a cocky ace who laughed off danger, now flinches at the sound of radial engines, his hands trembling as he straps into his cockpit. His dreams are plagued by the Hellcat's silhouette, its broad wings, its 6 guns blazing, its engine a roar that drowns out hope. The toll wasn't just personal, it was collective, a wound that bled Japan's air forces dry. Hiroshi's squadron, once a brotherhood of 20 pilots who shared sake under the stars, is now a ghost. Names like Kenji Sato, Taro Yamada, and Ensign Daiichi Mori are etched on a wooden shrine at their base, their faces fading from memory. The mess hall, once loud with laughter and boasts of kills, is silent, filled with boys who look to Hiroshi with wide, frightened eyes. These recruits, some as young as 16, have 80 hours of flight time, barely enough to take off and land. They crash during training, their Zeros stalling in tight turns or colliding on runways. Hiroshi, at 26, feels like an old man, his experience a burden as much as a badge. He tries to teach them, but there's no time. The Hellcat has changed the war's rhythm. Where Japanese pilots once dictated the terms of engagement, swooping in with precise strikes, now they react, always one step behind. The Zero, once a symbol of Japan's might, is a death trap. Its lightweight frame, with a wing loading of 22 pounds per square foot, crumples under the Hellcat's firepower. Its lack of armor leaves pilots exposed, their lives dependent on luck or split-second reflexes. Hiroshi's Zero, scarred from a dozen missions, leaks oil and rattles in flight. He patches it with tape, knowing it's futile, his hands stained with grease and despair. The rise of kamikaze tactics was a grim testament to this despair, a desperate pivot born of defeat. By October 1944, Japan's leaders, facing the loss of the Philippines and Marianas, turned to suicide missions. The Tokubetsu Kogekitai, special attack units, or kamikaze, asked pilots to crash their planes into American ships, trading their lives for a chance to damage the enemy. Hiroshi, fiercely proud, refuses. He's a warrior, trained to fight and survive, not a martyr. But he watches friends volunteer, their faces blank with resignation. Ensign Daichi Mori, a 19-year-old who once dreamed of designing bridges, climbs into a Zero loaded with a 250-kilogram bomb. Daichi, who used to sketch aircraft in his notebook, salutes Hiroshi, his eyes hollow. He takes off from a battered airfield, his plane struggling under the bomb's weight. Hiroshi stands on the runway, his stomach churning as Daiichi's Zero disappears into the clouds. The kamikaze campaign, formalized after Leyte Gulf, was a sign of Japan's collapse. Of the 2,550 kamikaze pilots who flew in 1944 to 45, fewer than 20% hit their targets, and none sank a carrier. Hellcats, equipped with ANAPS-13 tail warning radar, intercepted them 50 miles out, their .50 caliber guns turning Zeros into fireballs. During the Battle of Okinawa, April to June 1945, Hellcats downed 475 kamikaze planes, protecting carriers like the USS Bunker Hill. Hiroshi, stationed on Okinawa, sees the sky lit with explosions, each one a pilot he knew. The psychological strain extended beyond the pilots, seeping into every layer of Japan's war machine. Ground crews, once the backbone of the air forces, were exhausted. Petty Officer Jiro Nakamura, a mechanic who tuned Hiroshi's Zero to perfection in 1941, now works 18-hour shifts with no parts. His toolbox, once filled with precision instruments, holds scavenged bolts and rusted pliers. Jiro, a father of two, hasn't seen his family in 18 months. His hands shake from fatigue, his eyes red from sleepless nights under flickering lanterns. Every Zero he sends up feels like a gamble, its engine patched with scrap, its wings held together with tape. When a plane crashes on takeoff, Jiro blames himself, his dreams haunted by the pilots he couldn't save. The Hellcat's dominance means every mission is a roll of the dice, and every failure feels personal. Families back home, reading letters from pilots like Hiroshi, sense the change. Hiroshi's mother, Hana, in a small village near Tokyo, keeps his letters under her pillow. Each one is shorter, sadder, the ink smudged with sweat or rain. She prays at a Shinto shrine, offering rice and sake, but the gods seem distant. Her neighbors, whose sons fly Zeros, share her fear, their homes filled with photos of young men who may never return. The cultural impact was profound, a fracture in Japan's martial soul. Pilots were raised on Bushido, the warrior code that placed honor above life. To retreat was shameful, to surrender unthinkable. In 1941, pilots like Hiroshi flew with a sense of destiny, their Zeros extensions of their will. But the Hellcat forced impossible choices. Missions became suicide runs, with survival unlikely. Pilots faced orders to attack Hellcat squadrons 10 times their size, knowing their Zeros couldn't withstand a single burst. Some, like Lieutenant Saburo Sakai, defied the odds. Sakai, wounded by a .50 caliber round in August 1942, flew 600 miles from Guadalcanal to Rabaul with a shattered canopy, half-blind, his Zero leaking fuel. He landed, blood pooling in his cockpit, and lived to tell his story in Samurai. But Sakai was an exception. By 1945, even aces were grounded, their planes destroyed or unflyable. The Hellcat didn't just kill pilots, it killed the myth of invincibility, turning warriors into men who fought to delay defeat. Hiroshi, once proud, now questions his purpose. He writes to his mother, "The sky is no longer ours," his words heavy with shame. The psychological toll was compounded by isolation. Japan's airfields, once bustling hubs, were cut off. Radio communications, hampered by American jamming, left pilots like Hiroshi alone in the sky. His base in the Solomons, once home to 50 Zeros, is now a graveyard of wrecks, its runway pockmarked by Hellcat bombs. Hiroshi's comrades, once a family, are scattered, some dead, some captured, some lost to the sea. The Imperial Navy's morale, built on victories like Pearl Harbor, crumbled under the Hellcat's relentless pressure. Pilots began to whisper of defeat, a taboo in a culture that equated surrender with dishonor. Hiroshi, trained to die for the Emperor, finds himself clinging to life, his survival a quiet rebellion against a war that's lost its meaning. Let's talk logistics again, because the Hellcat's success was as much about supply chains as it was about firepower. America's industrial might was a juggernaut, a machine that Japan couldn't match. Grumman's factories in Bethpage, New York, employed 30,000 workers, including women who riveted airframes, wired cockpits, and assembled R-2800 engines. Each Hellcat took 6,000 man-hours to build, a process streamlined by assembly lines that ran 24/7. By 1944, Grumman delivered 1,000 Hellcats a month, each equipped with 250 gallons of 100-octane aviation fuel, enough for 4 hours of combat at 25,000 feet. The R-2800 engine, with a 2.3-liter displacement and 18 cylinders, was built by Pratt & Whitney in Connecticut, where 50,000 workers produced 10,000 engines a year. Each engine was a marvel, with a 2-stage supercharger that maintained power at high altitudes. American carriers, like the USS Intrepid, USS Yorktown, and USS Saratoga, were floating cities, each carrying 90 Hellcats, 100,000 gallons of fuel, 50,000 rounds of .50 caliber ammunition, and 500 tons of ordnance, including 1,000-pound bombs and HVAR rockets. Supply ships like the USS Altair and USS Vega delivered spare parts, fuel, and food, crossing 6,000 miles of ocean to keep carriers combat-ready. The Navy's logistics, overseen by Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz, included floating dry docks, repair ships, and seaplane tenders, ensuring Hellcats flew daily. Japan's logistics, by contrast, were a house of cards. Mitsubishi's factories in Nagoya, bombed by B-29 superfortresses, struggled to produce 1,500 Zeros a year. By 1944, production dropped to 800 as raw materials, aluminum, rubber, and steel, ran dry. Workers, often conscripted civilians, used outdated tools, their hands blistered from 16-hour shifts. Fuel was a crisis. A Zero carried 150 gallons of 87-octane fuel, often diluted with ethanol or kerosene, limiting it to 2 hours of combat. Hiroshi's Zero stalls mid-flight, its carburetor clogged by impurities, its engine coughing at 10,000 feet. Japan's carriers, like the Taiho and Hiryu, were isolated, their fuel tanks half empty. Mechanics like Petty Officer Jiro Nakamura resorted to mixing kerosene with aviation fuel, fouling spark plugs and causing crashes. Airfields, once bustling, were now littered with wrecks, their runways cratered by Hellcat raids. Hiroshi's base in the Solomons, once home to 50 Zeros, has 10 half unflyable. Japan's supply chain, crippled by American submarines and air raids, relied on barges that carried 500 gallons of fuel at a time, a fraction of the 10,000 gallons needed daily. Pilots flew on half-tanks, their missions cut short, their training limited to 20-minute hops. The Hellcat's versatility was a game-changer, a multi-role weapon that dominated every theater of the Pacific War. It wasn't just a fighter, it was a bomber, a rocket platform, a reconnaissance plane, and a night fighter. During the invasion of Iwo Jima, February-March 1945, Hellcats from Task Force 58 strafed Japanese bunkers with 500-pound ANM-64 bombs, each with a 262-pound TNT warhead. Dropped from 2,000 feet, the bombs blasted fortifications, collapsing tunnels, and clearing paths for Marines landing on Iwo's black sand beaches. In the Battle of Okinawa, April-June 1945, Hellcats sank destroyers like the Isokazi and Hamakazi with 5-inch HVAR rockets, each carrying a 7-pound high-explosive warhead capable of punching through 1 inch of steel. A single Hellcat could carry 6 rockets, firing them in salvos that created 500-foot fireballs. Hellcats also flew photo reconnaissance missions, their K-24 cameras capturing images of Japanese defenses from 10,000 feet. These photos, developed aboard carriers, guided Allied planners, pinpointing gun emplacements and fuel depots. Hiroshi, stationed on Okinawa, watches Hellcats bomb his airfield, their rockets exploding in fiery plumes that shake the earth. His Zero, hidden in a limestone cave, is one of the last, its paint peeling, its engines silent. His squadron, once 20 strong, is down to 3 pilots, their planes patched with scrap aluminum and hope. The Hellcat's night-fighting capability was a further blow. The F6F-5N, equipped with AN/APS-6 radar in a wing pod, hunted Zeros in darkness, its pilots trained to track targets by radar blips. During the Battle of Leyte Gulf, October 24 to 25, 1944, night-flying Hellcats from the USS Independence downed 20 Japanese bombers, their radar guiding precise attacks. Japan's airfields, once launching pads for Zeros, were now rubble. Hiroshi's base on Okinawa, a coral strip carved from jungle, is bombed daily, its hangars destroyed, its fuel tanks burning. He hides his Zero in a cave, but it's a futile gesture. The Hellcat's reach is everywhere, day, night, land, and sea. Its pilots, like Lieutenant Eugene Valencia, who shot down 23 planes, were masters of their craft. Valencia's VF-9 squadron, nicknamed the Flying Circus, achieved a 10-to-1 kill ratio, downing 120 Zeros for 12 losses. Their Hellcats, equipped with radar and 2,000 pounds of ordnance, were unstoppable. The Hellcat's legacy is staggering, a monument to American ingenuity and resolve. It destroyed 5,163 enemy planes, more than any Allied fighter, accounting for 75% of the Navy's air-to-air kills. Its pilots, like Commander John Thatch, were innovators. Thatch's Thatch Weave, a tactic where 2 Hellcats crisscrossed to trap Zeros, neutralized Japan's agility advantage. During the Battle of Midway, June 4 to 7, 1942, Thatch used the Weave to down 6 Zeros, proving its effectiveness. By 1944, the U.S. Navy had 1,000 Hellcats across 15 carriers, each ship a floating fortress with 90 planes, 2,000 crew, and 500 tons of ordnance. Japan's air forces, with fewer than 2,000 operational planes by 1945, were a shadow of their 1941 strength. The Hellcat cleared the skies for invasions, from Saipan in June 1944 to Tokyo in August 1945. It escorted B-29 superfortresses bombing Japan, protected troopships at Leyte, and sank carriers like the Hio and Zuikaku. Its 19-to-1 kill ratio, 5,163 kills for 270 losses, was unmatched. Hiroshi, one of the few survivors, returns to Japan in August 1945. His village near Tokyo is rubble, his Zero a memory. He sits under a cherry tree, its blossoms falling like tears. His scars from a shattered canopy tell his story. He respects the Hellcat's pilots, men who fought with his own courage. But he knows the truth. Japan's pilots tried to escape the Hellcat, but it was too late. If you loved this epic journey into the Pacific War, where the Zero faced the unstoppable Hellcat, smash that subscribe button. Your support keeps these stories alive, honoring the pilots who fought and fell. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.